The more you feel supported at home, the more likely you're going to have space in your mind for creativity. That creativity then is reflected in terms of reframing your work, recategorizing your job responsibilities, and integrating an element of fun and competition into what you do.
Welcome to the Research for Good podcast. My name's Professor David Ellis, and today I'm joined by Professor Yasin Rofcanin, who's a Professor of Organisational Psychology and Human Resource Management. So, Yasin, I guess the first question I tend to always ask is, how did you end up at Bath?
I was just a graduate of Warwick Business School, so back in 2016, they offered me a position for assistant professorship. At the same time, though, I was working as a lecturer at Essex Business School for 5 to 6 months. I sent my application here, and we came here with my partner, and our dream was, if we live in the UK, this would be one of the cities. So I sent in my application, and they made me a reader offer. So I wasn't expecting a reader offer, actually. So I applied for lectureship and senior lectureship / and they made me a reader offer. So everything was actually everything came together for promotional purposes.
The stars aligned, basically.
The stars aligned.
But thinking about, even just to back a bit further, so when you're doing things like your PhD, and was the idea to always be an academic and continue in that, or did you think you might do other things?
Oh, definitely. So I worked in few demanding consultancy jobs, including JP Morgan Chase, Sephora, L'Oreal. So Sephora and L'Oreal as business development manager, JP Morgan and Merrill Lynch as investment traders. So that was really a very tough environment that I couldn't fit. And I saw person job fit, the environment, the demanding conditions, the gender dynamics, the unsupportive culture. Actually, those topics let me focus on idiosyncratic work deals, which then led to proactive work behaviors, then digital, then AI, and topics around it. So I didn't like the cynicism. Autonomy is one of the things I really like about this job. And back at that time, I remember weeping and going back to bathroom and actually crying because of the mobbing I was exposed to.
So that's really interesting, because a lot of people, when I ask them, how did you get into this research area, it's usually, I read this or I was doing this work. But in your case, it's actually been inspired by your own life.
Definitely. My real life, limited, but I think it was very impactful. 3 years of work experience, right after which I resigned, started doing my MBA, but that was with dissertation. So during that MBA program, I focused on a new concept called idiosyncratic work deals.
And what are idiosyncratic work deals?
It is actually a form of individualized HR practices, personalized to you and me based on our preferences, based on our needs. Not the perks, but the more mutually win-win type of HR deals that you allocate to certain people, again, due to their contribution to work, due to their achievements, and or what they prefer. So, I might be a dad or I might have elderly care responsibilities at home. So part of flexibility comes from there. But also, if you are a star,
it's kind of sort of customizable agreements and management to individuals to get the best out of them.
Yeah, we can put it that way. Customizable, malleable, personalized to specific individual. But here we don't talk about the variety of HR practices. It's about remuneration. It's about career path. It's about your task and work responsibilities. It's about your flexibilities. I started off with that topic. It led me to job crafting. Then it led me to work-family balance, creativity, leisure, because then those topics have become more important in my life as well. They've started occupying some greater gravity in my own personal life. So work, personal life, my relationship with my friends and my partner, they've always actually been the major source defining my research area. And recently, actually, I've had my feet into AI and algorithmic management, versions of intelligence and its impact on work design. So I've started writing and publishing on that topic as well.
I suspect that if most academics were honest, their influences do come from their life just as much as they come from the literature.
Yeah.
But not everyone perhaps articulates that, because they just think that the answer to the question is, I read this thing. But if we're honest,
reading came later for me. So I read this first conceptual piece on idiosyncratic deals. after I suffered. And then I was able to pinpoint and see, okay, this is what it is, and this is what they were doing. For instance, psychological withdrawal, mobbing, exposure to cynical culture, lack of organizational support. And my focus is a lot on the relationship between a leader and a follower, or a leader and an employee. So the cynicism there, the favoritism. So all these dynamics, actually, then I was able to pinpoint and, underpin, these are the constructs people have been studying, working, and publishing on.
And so your work is very much focused on that idea of how work can make us healthier or happier.
Part of it is well-being, but not happy in a frivolous sense of it, but well-being in its multidimensional representation of physical health, mental health, cognitive load, but also engagement at work as well. So dedication, absorption, and not in a sense of overimposing the positive psychology, but more really like a realistic sense of, given the conditions, given and across the various sectors, positions, how can everyone achieve a optimum work-life balance?
Which is no easy feat to research. You have just done work recently around remote working.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you tell us
that
about
paper
that?
is such an interesting paper, and the whole idea of that paper, the gist of that paper is, what are the consequences of telecommuting during a very stressful situation? So COVID-19, when working from home was a rule, it was a requirement of the government, and we were here in the UK, but then also across the countries. So the basic idea of the paper, and we conducted 2 studies to emphasize it here. The idea was, what are the consequences, well-being consequences, stress and work engagement related outcomes of telecommuting or working from home, and then we changed it to hybrid work with the second paper and the data collected in.
And of course that would be after COVID, presumably.
So we started actually with COVID. COVID gave us a nice intervention point, and we looked at before and after conditions in terms of how our conceptual model unfolds. 2 important things in this paper. One of them is leadership support, but leadership support for hybrid work. And the second one is spousal support and compassionate love. So what happens if you're in a relationship, but you're at the same time sharing the same place, the impact on stress, work intensification, sexual drive. So we looked at that as well as an important indication of well-being, and then sleep quality. The interesting bit in the first paper was, it was not hybrid work that reduced stress and increased workflow. It was leaders' support for hybrid work, exhibited in different ways like empathy, concern for your family life, provision of structural resources that actually had a significant impact on the stress reduction and increase in the workflow, rather than the act of hybrid work itself.
People listening will think, so how do you do this?
So my main collaborator, I would say friend, co-author, is Mireia from IESE Business School. So majority of our data come from Spanish-speaking part of the world. The particular data of this study is from Spain, Guatemala, Chile, and Mexico. They have connections, they have networks of people who do their MBAs or degrees in Spain, or through other network, or through other connections. They hire participants to complete our daily diary studies. So we conduct diary studies, which means that we want to capture the dynamic changes in a person's everyday life. So we look at the fluctuations and changes. But I think the interesting bit of that methodology is it focuses on the events and experience approach, and doesn't assume that things are stable. So there cannot be any better condition than COVID itself. And then post-COVID, we approach people who have different work arrangements in their work lives, hybrid, completely working from home, completely in person in the office. So we approached and sampled a mixture of those people, again conducted a diary study. Results were replicated in the second data, but then 2 interesting things came out as well. Stress increased, exhaustion decreased, and intensification decreased, but also work engagement increased when people worked in a hybrid form, especially under 2 conditions. Spousal support for work life. So imagine you're in a relationship and your partner is supportive of you in general, of what's happening in your work, and that you're able to capitalize on the interpersonal relationships that you have at work. So we term the concept interpersonal capitalization, referring to a person, a focal employee, talking about, focusing on delineating the things that happen at work and taking those at home to share with the partner. The second one was gender. Gender dynamics are something to pick up. So working from home, or the mandate to come back to work, is not same for everybody.
Sure.
As expectedly, women expressed and felt the highest extent of intensification and stress when they were home. And digging deeper into the data, the results actually showed us that, unfortunately, women had difficulty in separating the boundaries. So boundaries for them became more blurred. So segmentation preference is an important takeaway message of this paper.
Do you have any thoughts on why that's the case? Why do women find that more difficult?
Talking from my own, studies perspective, the data we had and published. So we studied elderly care responsibilities, we studied childcare responsibilities, cognitive load, remuneration, after work. Most of those are more pronounced for women.
I wasn't going to second guess it, but in my head I was just thinking about responsibilities in the home or family responsibilities.
Exactly.
I wonder, we know that tends to fall more on women than men. So I suppose that might explain.
It's also sense of responsibility, the cognitive load and the remuneration, both at work and at home, and then the relational dynamics as well.
Which I guess makes sense that then those relationship dynamics, or say the partner being more supportive, becomes even more important as a buffer.
You actually touch upon a very interesting paper on playful work design and crafting. First of all, it's not something frivolous. It's not something to do actually just to create an environment of play. To start off with the support, so that is a very interesting concept. In one of our papers, we looked at the support given and support received, and we looked at the significant other. So sometimes the extent to which your partner thinks that they are supportive of you may not actually indicate that they are supportive, because you may not be in receipt of it.
Sure.
So our starting point in that paper was the dynamic relationship between support given and received.
Okay.
And compassionate love moderated that relationship. In technical lay terms, it means that the more romantic relationship you have with your partner in the terms of romanticism and compassionate, the support dynamics are strengthened. So the important bit of that now for work is it spills over. So the more you feel supported at home, the more likely you're going to have space in your mind for creativity. That creativity then is reflected in terms of reframing your work, recategorizing your job responsibilities, and integrating an element of fun and competition into what you do, which we refer to as playful work design.
Okay.
So it is an approach to work design, a bottom-up approach, where you create and frame and approach work conditions to create dynamics of curiosity, dynamics of creativity, a bit of fun, but this is all within yourself and between you.
So it's almost like
competition.
It's almost like having people being able to have that psychological space to be creative, just from what you were saying before in terms of...
Exactly.
I was struck there by what you said about, people can feel that they're giving their partner support, but they're maybe not expressing it.
Or they may not be receiving it. So we
totally,
actually looked at the receipt. So what you give to me may not be what I want.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really interesting psychological issue around I feel this, but I either don't get it, or I feel this, but I don't know the other. It's the classic behaviour versus thought. It's like I feel I give partner this, but actually if you then go and ask the partner, which what people often do because they assume, right, that it turns out that that's not the case. That's really interesting.
Congruence there for what you're referring to. We refer to as congruence, seeing eye to eye.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And the same, that's also an area I'm interested in. So to what extent you want your leaders to pry into your private life, to intervene in your private lives, because there's a term called family supportive supervisor behaviors, and it is shown to be a very effective leadership style because it takes into account empathy, concern for your non-work life, work-family balance, and cognitively creative solutions for your non-work life. But then in one study we found out that actually it is the congruence that matters there the most. So I have a manager, I report to someone, and if I don't want this manager to actually know a lot about my private life, but if the manager actually insists on engaging in FSSBs towards me, family supportive behaviors, then it backfires.
Sure.
I show withdrawals.
So one of the other questions I had was, so you touched there on leadership. And you've actually hinted at what a good leader is. Imagine if you were a leader listening to this and you're thinking, what can I do? And it's a hybrid work situation like many places are. Is there specific tips or advice you could give?
I think a core message of that paper was not the act of hybrid work itself, but knowing that your leadership support is there for telecommuting. So I think overall, non-work life supportive leadership. So I wouldn't want to use the mainstream conventional term of family as well, because family also means different to each of us. We may not have family, which is normal. We may have a pet, and that's my family as well. But empathy, we found out that actually empathy, listening rather than talking, when it's your report and when they are in a position to report to you, and then being creative in terms of tackling with the issues. I really like those dimensions. And the fourth one is making sure that structural job resources, not the social ones, but the structural ones, are there whenever you need them. For instance, you're tackling a problem, you want to improve yourself, you want to receive some budget for training and development. At least being able to talk about those. But I think empathy, really, coming up with creative solutions for your non-work problems, suffice to come as the top two items of that leadership. So I don't want to say transformational leadership there. I detest, because studies, they show that they're cross-sectional, as you know, lots of problems with those studies. So we're not sure about the reliability on authentic leadership, transformational, creative. But I'm more realistic on this. And our studies, one meta-analysis, actually won the Best Paper Award last year from Journal of Vocational Behavior. And that was on family supportive supervisor leadership and leadership style. So just empathy, not an idealized form of leader, but an everyday mundane type of person who is there for you and who actually makes you aware that you can actually rely on her or him.
So it's almost in a way like, moving away from those kind of like, very sort of classic types of leadership towards, I guess what you're describing here is almost like a kind of way of doing leadership without giving it a certain leadership name.
Yeah, I mean, linking it to leadership style, then our data show that people became more creative.
Yeah.
You're very creative, you come up with your own content and outcomes, and for instance, conference organization, there are bits and pieces. When you give them the space, the platform, and the mental availability, we found out that people become more creative. So creativity and innovation is one of the significant outcomes of work performance.
Speaks to trust as well. It's
Exactly.
trusting people to do
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
And how do you maintain your own work-life balance that, to come back to where we started, your own negative experiences have influenced a lot of your work.
So my point actually is my take on all these discussions, I think going forward in around 2030 and 3030s, I can't give an exact date, but I think we will have more time in our lives. So that's where it's going to end. I think we will have more leisure time, we will have more non-work time, and it's already started happening in my life as well. So in terms of the outcomes and in terms of the number of hours I dedicate to my work, it's decreased significantly. Not on the expense of outcome or productivity, but I've had enormous amount of free time and leisure time. And then the question is, going back to Renaissance times, all those, what do you do with your leisure time? Is it only reading a fiction, walking, and enjoying arts?
Well, yeah.
You don't have the resources.
I was going to say, do you think you've got more leisure time because you've become better at the things you do? Or do you think the technology has helped you become more productive? Or something else, some other...
I think it's a combination of three aspects. In terms of the career, I think I've reached the point where I want to be, and it gave me a tipping point of saturation. Second point is, with technology, I've become better at achieving the outcomes, at least. But I think that came with the collaborative efforts of the team. And being a journal editor now, if you're speaking from an academic perspective, associate editor in those journals, it helped me a lot in knowing people, expanding my network. So I receive a lot of participations in so many studies. But intentionally, I reduce the amount of work that I do, especially on peer-reviewed articles or publishing, because I don't want to be exhausted and I don't want to feel bored of that as well, because for the upcoming 30 or 25 years, like you, we are going to do this job.
You've been listening to the Research for Good podcast. To find out more about research in the School of Management, you can visit our website or click the links in the episode description.